Welcome back to the True Body Intelligence Podcast. My name is Christopher Lee Maher, and I'm your host. And today we are going to be getting into mental health and mental wellness as it relates to the True Body Intelligence philosophy and the True Body Intelligence path. Today's episode is going to be very long. So instead of these shorter 25-minute episodes, we're tying all three of them together. It's going to be a very impassioned session. So get something to drink, go to the bathroom, get some food, then come in, sit down, and tune in. Because I'm going to be on fire today because I'm so passionate about this subject. Hope you enjoy. Let's get after it. We're back in business.
We are back in business.
Yeah, we're back in business.
And today is going to be an exciting day because we're going to dive into very important issues about the human condition. And we're going to talk about how True Body Intelligence can help with all of them. And we're going to start today with mental health.
Yeah, I mean, like, if your body is healthy, the chances are you're healthy, right? And then we have to think about all the other elements that are causing someone to feel hopeless or have suicidal ideations or be in a state of emotional and social disconnection, having a desire to be excessively withdrawn, choosing to manage their stress loads with substance, whether it's recreational or it's pharmaceutical intervention, right? And so as it relates to True Body Intelligence, of course we have to talk about the body, right? Because the body is connected to what? It's connected to the brain. How is it connected to the brain? It's connected through the nervous system, right? And so when you think about the body, you have to think about magnetic pulse, right? You got to think about circulation of blood. And then when you think about the brain, you got to think about electrical charge, right? And so if the magnetic pulse is low and the electrical charge is low, then the motivation, the inspiration, the excitement, the charge, that pulse in life that motivates you to get out of bed in the morning and do something, right? Whether it's run or surf or go to work or feed your kids, whatever it is, when that pulse is low, it makes it very difficult because you're going to have a decreased amount of energy. And when your energy is low, so is your motivation. When your electrical charge in your brain is low, you're making decisions from a position of fight or flight. Because when it's low, it's indicating to us that electrically, one hemisphere is more active and the other hemisphere is more passive. And so in Chinese medicine, the way they think about things is the brain is the governing vessel. What's its job? It's to govern, right? Governing is very different than ruling, right? Its job is to make sure that you're able to accomplish what it is you want to experience. And it has the ability to rob from Peter to pay Paul, right? So it can take energy from one organ and help feed another organ that's weak. So when you look at the body through the prism that we look through in True Body Intelligence, of very basic things you have to think about. The right side of the body is going to be masculine. The left side of the body is going to be feminine. Well, is the brain the same? Well, the answer is no. right? The left hemisphere of the brain is masculine and the right hemisphere of the brain is feminine. So when you look at us as humans and you're looking at us as a whole, you have to realize that, and I've said this many times before, whatever is going on in your body is going on in your life. And so if you're depressed or unhappy or feeling some sense of hopelessness because of the external circumstances that you're surrounded with, your environment is detrimental to your development. For instance, you're going to work and they're paying you for $40. I mean, they're paying you for 40 hours a week, but you're working 60, right? Well, now you're giving more energy than you have to give. So the exchange is inequitable. Well, over time, if the exchange is inequitable, what's going to happen?
It's going to create stress. It's going to create imbalance.
Yeah, you're going to start getting disturbed, right? You're going to start getting agitated because every organ in the body has what? It has a certain level of intelligence, a very particular type of intelligence. And when it's unfair and inequitable, then one of those organs is going to start to push back and it's going to get frustrated and agitated. And when it gets frustrated and agitated, what's it going to do? It's going to cry out for help, right? And so when you're someone who's struggling with anxiety, anger, frustration, agitation, fear, self-righteousness, hate, resentment, then you have to go, oh, you mean these emotions, they're coming from the inside? And when I'm experiencing those, my organs are telling me that something is inequitable in my life? Oh, well, what's the first step? I need to assess and look at where are the areas of my life where the exchange is unfair and inequitable. Meaning, we're lacking symbiosis, equal exchange, give and take and give. So here I am, working my 60 hours a week, getting paid really for 40. This goes on for several years. Well, where's that extra energy going to come from? Which organs in your body generate that energy, right? Well, in terms of how the Chinese think about the body, Asian mysticism and philosophy, the spleen is in the spiritual world, and its job is to generate a sense of peacefulness and fun and playfulness. Can you be at peace and have fun when you go to work and you know the exchange is unfair and inequitable? You might be able to do that for a while because you're desperate for the resources, right? But the second you start to understand your value, then that's an intolerable dynamic. And so this is one of the areas that you have to assess. Am I willing to participate in a dynamic that causes me to feel resentful? Because resentment is undetectable. Because see, I can resent you and I can put on a good face. Hey, how you doing today, Bob? I'm great. How are you doing, Christopher? I'm wonderful. Good to see you. Even though underneath I'm thinking, this guy is robbing me blind. And so the spleen, because it's about nurturing, it values relationships often more times than outcomes. And so when you continue to swing that pendulum too far to the left, you start draining your body of core energy. And then what do you think you get attracted to? You get attracted to energy drinks, and you get attracted to sweets. Because what do you need? You need a quick shot of energy, because when you go to sleep at night, that short amount of rest is never enough to restore the excessive giving that you gave. Now, if your employer decides to give you fair and equitable exchange, meaning you decide that you love the work that you're doing, and yet in order for you to stay there, something has to shift, it means you have to be willing to have a conversation. Well, which organ do you think is for clear communication? The pancreas and the spleen. And so if you looked at the juxtaposition there, right? The only way out when you're struggling from any level of anger or depression or hopelessness or frustration or resentment or self-righteousness or fear, you have to communicate to someone. So when we look at all states of mental wellness, my feeling is the first thing you have to get in order is your pancreas and your spleen and your stomach and your lungs and your large intestine. And the question is why? Well, the lungs are the center for boundaries and self-empowerment. And the completing organ in terms of a 6-division relationship in Chinese medicine is the spleen and the pancreas. And so if I have poor boundaries, are people going to be able to pull me into a dynamic? Or am I going to volunteer to be part of a dynamic where the exchange is unfair and inequitable? Well, of course I am, because I have no boundaries. And so when your boundaries are poor, it allows people to come in and take what? Take advantage. And so everybody wants what they want when they want it. And if you're around and they have an agenda and you've agreed to be part of their agenda, they're going to squeeze you for every drop you have in that grapefruit. And you have to make sure that it's equitable for you. And so when you're looking at mental wellness, everything has to be on the table. You have to be willing to look at how much energy do I spend? What kind of foods am I vested in? Meaning, what's my relationship with food? You got to look at your sleep, okay? And what you have to really look at are your interpersonal relationships and where you're agitated and you're frustrated and you're unable to communicate to your own benefit. And so the spleen and the pancreas and the stomach and the lungs and the large intestine, they're essential, because you're going to have boundaries. You're going to have a really good sense of fairness. You're going to have access to abundant amounts of energy, clear communication, and be able to authentically self-express in order to get even your basic needs met. So imagine how many people in the United States, their basic needs, right, which is to have people respect their boundaries, to be able to communicate clearly to their own benefit, to be able to recruit from their sphere of influence people who will help them manifest the life it is that they want, to be able to be authentically self-expressed in whatever their passion is, and whatever their business is, in whatever relationships they're in, and to be able to honor their own set of unique principles on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly, on a yearly basis without fail. You know, this is the basic. So when you look at mental wellness, you have to look at the first tier of wellness. Like, where does energy begin? Well, You pull a baby out of a womb, what's the first thing they do?
Cry.
The first thing they want to do is they want to get them a breath. They want to clear things out so that they can they can take in the breath of life, because your body and my body is powered by what?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Like the lights here that are providing this ambiance, this setting that we're creating for people to tune into, is powered by what?
Oxygen.
Electricity.
Oh, in the lights example.
Yeah. Right. So that's their electricity. So we need oxygen, right? So if my lungs are poor function, meaning I have no sense of boundaries, my lungs are always under strain. That part of my body, because see, every organ in your body is connected to a different world. Well, what are the lungs connected to? They're connected to the physical, instinctual body, right? What's their genius? Well, it's power and truth. Well, what's the large intestine connected to? It's connected to the spiritual body. Okay? Well, what's its job? To generate and circulate spiritual energy through my body. Well, the stomach, which world is it connected to? It's connected to the mental world, analysis. So if my lungs and my large intestine, my stomach are strong, they're supporting the next organ in that relationship, which is the pancreas and the spleen. But if the ones above the spleen are weak, what's going to happen? The spleen, when it's stressed, it's going to have very little support. So the most essential thing to develop to create a high level of expression of mental wellness is clear boundaries, devotion to your own principles, clear communication, and authentic self-expression. You need to do that. So in the true body intelligence path, when we're working with people and we're helping develop them, the first thing we get into is the first tier of wellness. We got to strengthen the lungs, strengthen the large intestine, strengthen the stomach, and strengthen the pancreas and spleen. Because if we have good elimination and we have good digestion, the chances that we have good mental wellness, they're pretty good. But if my digestion is poor, which is where I get my energy from my sustenance, and my elimination is poor, which means that now I'm toxic. So now imagine I'm getting very little energy from the food that I eat, and all of the substances that are inside of me, all of the gases, are making my body extremely toxic. So now I'm toxic, constrained, and digestively I'm weak. So if my digestion is weak, can my absorption be strong? No. It's not possible. Why is that not possible? Because now it means that all the tiny little bits of food that I chewed and I swallowed, they're too big to be absorbed into my blood to add any actual benefit or value. And in fact, it does the opposite, because now they're too big and now they're creating strain in the walls of my small intestine. What do I end up with? I end up with a leaky gut. And so the stomach is for what? It's also the organ for chewing, because where does the stomach open up into? It opens up into the mouth. And so when I'm chewing and my mouth is strong, what's going to happen? Those bits of food are going to be very, very small, and I'm going to be able to use them to pull energy into my small intestine, through the walls, and into my blood. And now I can utilize, versus I'm eating and getting a small return on my investment of energy, right? Well, one, I had to work for the food. Okay, so think about all the energy I have to spend. I'm going to work for the food. Now, I might have to prepare the food. That's another load of energy, okay? And then I've got to be able to chew the food and digest the food well to get a net positive in my energy. Okay? Now, even if I eat the best quality food in the world, but I only chew a bolus of food 5 times before I swallow, what are the chances I'm getting a net positive energy return that's highly beneficial to my mental wellness? Chances are it's very low, right? It's going to be super, super, super low. So in True Body Intelligence, we're opening up the channels, the intelligence inside the lung, the large intestine, the stomach, and the pancreas and spleen, so that you start to use your body in a way that will produce a powerful result. So what do I want for my digestion? What do I want for my inspiration? What do I want for my expiration? You know what I want? I want a high positive net of energy, because if I have a high positive net of energy, you think I'm going to feel good? You think my perception is going to be expanded? My emotions are going to be more grounded? Do you think it's possible that my elimination is going to be better? My mind is going to function better, right? Well, if I have a high positive net of energy from this exchange of oxygen and food in my body, I've already covered half the battle. Because guess where depression emanates from in terms of how we think about the body? Through the small intestine. And what's the next organ that receives energy next? From the pancreas and the spleen, the small intestine. And the small intestine belongs to which element? In Chinese medicine, it belongs to the element of fire, which is passion. And so if my fire's turned on, my passion is high. If my fire is low, my depression is high. And so when you look at the body, and you look at the pancreas and stomach, the spleen, the large intestine, and the small intestine, you have to think, I got to start thinking about temperature as well. If I start considering temperature, what do I got to think about? Well, there must be, how many kinds of temperatures are there? There must be at least 6, right? So there must be warmth. Well, if there's warmth, well, then there's got to be cool. And that's probably the state that we would like to vacillate in between. But then there's, if we move to the extremes of that, right, what are we going to get? We're going to get hot. We're going to get cold. Well, what if we move to like the outer extremes of that? We're going to get freezing. We're going to get boiling. And so now we think, oh my goodness, if my small intestine is cold, that means the fire's turned out in my small intestine. And if my fire's turned out in my small intestine, what's going to happen to my access to passion? It's going to be severely reduced. Yet my access to depression is going to be severely increased. So when we think about mental wellness and mental health, we have to start to think about physiological. We have to start to think about energetic. We have to start thinking about emotional. And then we have to start thinking about structural. Because see, when my organs are too cold and my organs are too hot, they then start communicating with the muscles in my body, and they start changing my physical structure. My posture changes. And if you take people that are depressed, if we lined up 10,000 of them and we looked at their posture, do you think it's possible we might look and find very similar postures? And then if we find people who are highly impassioned, extremely creative, and thirsty and hungry for life, and taking heartfelt action to their own benefit, do you think we would see a similar posture? So what does it mean? It means, oh my God, you mean my posture is also an indication of my state of mental wellness? And what's making up my posture is the amount of tension and stress and distortion and toxicity in my muscles. And what's determining that is the health and function of my organs. And what's determining that is my emotional connection to what it is I really want to experience in my life. And what comes before that is my incarnated soul and what it wants to experience. And there's this information highway that's going on. And the easiest thing for me to look at is my posture. Well, then what's the obvious answer? I mean, I got to go in. I got to start doing the things necessary to change my posture. Because when I change my posture, I change my orientation to passion versus depression. I change my orientation to hopelessness versus hope. I change my orientation to freedom versus repression. I change my orientation to care versus carelessness. And so when I'm emotionally strained, I'm physically strained. When I'm physically strained, I'm energetically strained. When I'm energetically strained, I'm psychologically strained, meaning this whole thing is connected. And so when you're looking at anyone suffering from some deep state of mental illness, you've got to be willing to look at it all. Everything has to be on the table. And then when it's all on the table, we can sift through and we can filter and we can start to look at it and go, oh, wow, your posture, your energy, your mood, the color of your eye, the whites of your eyes, how closed your eyelids are, how far forward your head is, the health of your scalp, the color of your skin, all of it's telling me something about you. The smell of your body, it's telling me something about you. People who are sick, they smell like they're rotting. What does your gas smell like when you toot? Right? Is it like, oh my God, this is smelly? Well, if it stinks, it's telling you something. Well, what's it telling you? It's telling you got too much heat in your body. Right? Way too much heat in your system. Right? If your breath is foul, what's it telling you? What's it telling everybody else? Ooh, my stomach, it's unhealthy. It's too hot, right? Because what does excessive heat create? It creates excessive smell, right? If I take a chicken, all right, and I put it in a pan and it comes from the freezer and you're at the other end of the house, right? You're in the garage, okay? And I leave it sitting in there. Can you smell the chicken?
No.
No. But if I turn up the heat and I start cooking that chicken and you're in the garage, you know, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes later, can you smell that chicken?
Obviously.
Of course you can smell that chicken, because what does excessive heat do? It generates odor, right? And now you can tune in. So, you know, what do your armpits smell like, right? What's your crotch smell like, right? What does your bowel smell like? All of these are indications of how well or how high your state of dis-ease is internally. So what do we want to do? We want to make some changes, right? Do the basic things. What are the things that I can begin to remove that are causing me to be excessively hot inside? What am I eating? What am I drinking? How am I sleeping? Because guess what? Whatever goes into your mouth goes into your brain. Whatever you drink goes into your brain. And whatever goes into my brain determines my overall state of mental wellness. And if you want a high state of mental wellness, you have to be self-responsible. And you got to look at, wow, what do I got to do? If I'm going to get involved in this true body intelligence path, I got to learn the first tier wellness. Right? We're dropping back there. I got to learn the first tier wellness. Because in sports, we pass the ball from one athlete to the other, right? And so hopelessness and depression, they're further down the line. And so if I'm running a play in sports, or if I'm a musician and I'm reading music, well, the first bar comes before the second bar, right? So in order for me to perform at a high level, I got to master that first bar. And then the second bar. And then if you listen to me go through 16 bars, and I've been practicing, you think, oh, this is really nice. This feels really good. This feels awesome. And so the first bar is the lungs, developing healthy boundaries. Because guess what? When our boundaries are unhealthy, we take that anger, because it's a yin organ, it's a feminine organ. What do we do with it? We then take that anger and we turn it in on ourselves. And we hurt ourselves. Oh my God, how do we hurt ourselves? Well, the next organ that the lungs feed to is the large intestine. And guess what the genius of the large intestine is? Completion. So what do I start doing? I start procrastinating. And now that I'm procrastinating, or I do the exact opposite, large intestine's getting too hot, now I'm fixated and I'm obsessed. So which organ comes next? Stomach. And now if I'm harming myself, what's the fastest, easiest way for me to take my anger out on me? Put stuff in my body that harms my body.
So it's not a comfort thing, it's an anger thing?
Oh, it's a self-sabotage thing. I'm angry.
Masqueraded as I'm just trying to be comfortable, so I want to eat what I like.
Yeah, people will tell themselves whatever story they want, right? But obviously they're bothered by something, because what rational-minded human would put stuff in their body that they know is denaturing and destroying their health? The only human that would do that is someone who was severely disconnected from what? From neutrality. Now they're invested interest. I'm upset, I'm pissed at you, I'm angry with you. You came into my house and you put things in specific places without asking me first. Yet my pancreas is weak, so I have no ability to communicate with you about it. So then what do? I take that anger and I shove it down. Well, what's the balancing organ? The large intestine. So now I take that heat, right, from my lungs, and I push it down into the large intestine. And now the large intestine starts getting too hot. And then that heat then gets transferred. The large intestine is like, look, I can only deal with so much heat. I got to pass this off to somebody. And then the lungs is like, well, you can't pass it back to me. I send it off to you. And the large intestine is like, well, who's in line next? And the body says, well, the stomach. The stomach says, I'll take the heat. Okay, so then the stomach takes the heat. And when the stomach gets too hot, well, it's the organ for authentic self-expression. So what do you think our words? You think our words become dull, or they become sharp, fixed, stabbing? They become sharp and fixed and stabbing. And now I feel justified to use some words to cut you down. Okay? Now, if my stomach goes cold because I'm too fearful, then what am I going to do? I'm then going to turn that anger in on myself. And I'm going to drop in some food that I know for sure is going to create problems for me, because I have the proof, right? When I eat these foods, I get constipated. When I drink this beverage, I get a headache. And yet I do it anyway. So what rational-minded human would put things in their body that they know are harmful?
Well, most people are not rational.
Somebody who's mentally unwell.
Which is most of us in this case.
Which is what makes them irrational. And so if you're listening and tuning in to this episode, this part of the True Body Intelligence podcast, you need to backtrack and get into that episode where we talked about inner and outer honesty, so you can really look at your relationship with food and beverage and go, oh, I had no idea that I was upset, and I was using my upset as justification to hurt myself. Because guess what? Some people are very uncomfortable with hurting others. And if you're very uncomfortable with hurting others, you're going to be more comfortable with hurting yourself. And other people are on the opposite end. They're very comfortable with hurting others, and they're very uncomfortable with hurting themselves. And so you've got to be willing to really look at yourself. And this is why true body intelligence is a very powerful tool for these times that we're in today. Because guess what we have? We have free time. We have a test. Like you were telling me about a test, a hair test I can take. I can take that test. I can send it off to the lab. 3 weeks later, they're going to send me back a report and it's going to tell me all my sensitivities to food. Now I know them. Okay? So I'm able to take heartfelt action to my own benefit. Well, what if I have all these signs and symptoms in my body? Okay? And I have that opportunity. I have the resources. Okay? And yet I still fail to take action to my own benefit. What is that telling me? Is that telling me that I'm mentally well or I'm mentally and emotionally unwell? Well, I have the symptoms. You gave me the key. I refuse to take action on it. Why am I undervested in my own wellness? And this is what I mean when I say mental wellness equals physical, structural, physiological, emotional, energetic, and environmental health and wellness. And so it's all connected. So when you see somebody like, oh, I'm suffering from mental wellness, I'm in mental illness, I'm struggling, then you've got to be, if you care about this person, you got to start asking them some questions like, what kind of food do you eat? Like, what time are you going to bed at night? Like, what's your go-to in terms of the daily acceptable drugs? Like, we got to look at like these basic things. And then when you get those basic things in order, right? Guess what changes? The way your mind perceives reality. Because whatever's in your body is in your life. Whatever's in your life is in your emotions. Whatever's in your emotions is in your energy. Whatever's in your energy is in your mind. And so we have to be willing to look at it all. And so the first tier of wellness, I think, is a really great place to start. Now, if you're lacking access to someone like me who can walk you through a process of getting your first tier of wellness super, super healthy, then be brave, be honest with yourself, look at the daily acceptable drugs that you're using, and each month walk yourself away from one of them. And I can promise you, every month you're going to start to feel better. Because as your brain goes, your life goes. Why? Because the electrical charge is the stimulation that governs every single thing in our body. And when you're in right relationship with the electrical charge through both hemispheres of your brain, your life is in right relationship with you. And now the body is running right. And when the body's running right, I say this a lot in the episodes. Your emotions are grounded. Your thoughts are clear. Your energy is abundant. And your body is comfortable and strong. And if you've got all four of those operating at a high state of function, everything in your life is easier. Everything starts to make more sense. Now you're able to consistently take heartfelt action to your own benefit. And anyone who's unable to take heartfelt action to their own benefit, we know that they have some level of mental illness, some level of physical illness, or I'm going to say it in a different way. They got some level of mental dis-ease, or physical dis-ease, or emotional dis-ease, or energetic dis-ease, or spiritual dis-ease. And so you've got to be willing to look at all of them. And in the first tier of wellness, I'm going to go over this again. You get to access the mental body through the stomach. You get to access the spiritual body through the large intestine, the pancreas, and the spleen. And you get to access the physical instinctual body through the lungs. And so if you raise the core vibration in those 4 organs, your mental wellness is going to improve dramatically.
Does the approach, your approach, or the approach that you teach other people when the trauma is very severe, is the approach different, or it's the same thing? It's just, I guess you have to be more consistent with it because there's more to overcome, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there's trauma, and then there's trauma, right? And so most humans are dealing with what I call strama, which is stress plus time. So the accumulation of stress that's unresolved versus like a one-time event, right?
Those are very deep.
Yes. One-time event happens to you when you're really, really young. It can swing 2 directions, right? It's either going to make you hyper excessive, or it's going to in the hot direction or the cold direction, which means you're going to be unable to take action, or you take way too much action, right? When you have stress over time, right? And so something simple like I have 2 scoops of sugar in my tea every morning, or my coffee every day. Well, you know, those first weeks, nothing. First couple weeks, first couple months, nothing. You don't notice anything. But then eventually one day you're like, why is my brain foggy, right? Well, guess what? Refined sugar, if it was reclassified, it would be considered a Schedule I drug, right? It's the most addictive substance on the planet. It's the most widely used addictive substance on the planet, okay? So that's a reflection of strama versus blunt force trauma. Blunt force traumas, it's easier to compartmentalize, okay? The challenge with strama is you get used to this state of expression, so you think that that state of expression is you. That's how you think you're supposed to feel. But the second we pull you out of that excessive state of strama, meaning we reduce your lifetime accumulated stress load by 50%, when you go back into those activities, you can actually feel the full impact, the full negative impact of what they're causing inside of you. Whether it's in your brain, whether it's in your digestion, whether it's in your energy, whether it's in your mood.
By the way, compartmentalize, you mean it's easier to isolate it, put it aside because it's a one event thing?
Yeah, because it's
happened a spread out thing.
Yeah, because it's happened at a precognitive state of function. So your conscious mind doesn't have access to all the details anymore. Right? So then the brain is going to compartmentalize whatever it needs to in order to protect the psyche. Because your psyche is very fragile.
Even with adults that, let's say, experience extreme trauma from war, they're not precognitive, but it does happen that they just kind of, forget about it, or like it's completely suppressed.
They will, being someone who was in the military, I can promise you there's definitely greater access to those memories than the memories that I was having when I was going through my trauma at 3.5 years old. So, anyone who's stuck in a state of post-traumatic stress, their nervous system is in an extreme state of fight or flight. And guys and gals that have been in war-torn countries or have been, 21-year-old girl is coming home from a frat party and she gets, something extremely terrible, gang raped or something like that. She's conscious while that experience is going on. And even though it's a one-time event, she at least knows that she's been traumatized. The veteran knows they've been traumatized. The person who's in a state of strama, who doesn't realize that sitting down in front of a computer 14 hours a day is quite traumatic to the nervous system, well, they get used to that after a few months. And so that's a normal state of function with them. So they never put any attention on those low-key stressors. But the thing is, those low-key stressors over time add up. So sit down for 30 years in that position, and one day he goes down to tie his shoe, and what happens? He can't get up. He's stuck on the floor because one of the discs in his lower lumbar has now slipped out of position because his right hip flexor is too short and too tight. And when he goes to stand up and he compresses the lower part of his spine, it now has lost its ability to flex and extend. And so when you're looking at blunt force trauma versus stroma, you have to realize that the more detrimental is the stroma because it's unrecognized. Like, for instance, let's say you and your brother were in business, right? And every day at a register, it just takes $5. That's it, only $5. And at the end of the month, you're doing the books, you're like, it's so weird. Every day I do the books, it's just like, wow, did somebody steal $5 from us? Is somebody, right? But every day he took $5, but he did it for 50 years in your business. Okay? Didn't seem like a lot in the beginning. But in the end, what's 5 times 365?
Times 50.
Right? Times 50, right? It's an enormous amount of money that he took and he stole. Okay? But you don't notice it because it's a little bit. But if you came in, you woke up in the morning and said, oh, I'm going to go down to the business. Oh, I tried to call Mike, but Mike's not around. Wonder what's going on. You go down to the business and everything's cleared out and Mike is gone. Well, you know that he robbed you, right? So at least you can take heartfelt action to your own benefit. You can seek help. But if you're doing things and you don't know that these things are harming you, you actually can't take heartfelt action to your own benefit because you're ignorant, okay? Meaning you're in stress ignorance, which what leads to high level states of stroma because people are unaware of the impact of the chemicals that they're using on a semi-regular basis. They don't understand the full impact until there's something that they can no longer do, right? Like, oh, I can't go bike riding anymore because my knee hurts too much. Oh, my poor knee, I'm just getting old. Come on, it's a crock of shit, right? Sure, you're chronologically older, but there's no reason for you to have knee pain, right? You have knee pain because you have a structure that's completely out of balance from all those micro choices that you made that were detrimental to your health and your wellness. Like, don't blame anything on your knee. Don't blame the reason why you can't go surfing anymore on your back, right? Don't blame the reason why you can't go skiing anymore on your neck. Right? You can't go skiing or surfing or biking anymore because of what you decided to put in your body and how you chose to use your body. You chose to ignore these tiny little signs every day. So, when we're looking at mental wellness as it relates to true body intelligence, in the true body intelligence path in our club, everything's on the table. And again, in order to balance things out, you've got to get into the first tier of wellness. Lung health, large intestine health, stomach health, pancreas and spleen. Inspiration, elimination, primary and secondary digestion. That's what you got to get into. And when that's running right, your emotions are fluid. But when those are stressed and strained, your emotions are stagnant. And when your emotions are stagnant, you have immediate, deep access to feelings of depression, hopelessness, repression, and carelessness.
So am I hearing you correctly that whether it's large trauma or stroma, is it even beneficial to know what the reason was? Or you're saying just focus on the body, focus on the system, focus on what you eat, focus on the stressors, all the stuff that you mentioned. That's all you need to actually heal the system versus focusing on what the reason was, or did I mishear you?
What happened? The solution is the same, right? There's no way getting out. So if you have blunt force trauma, someone broke your boundary, you still have to deal with the lungs, the large intestine, spleen, and stomach. Because anyone who had their boundaries broken when they were a child, they're poor communicators. They find it very difficult to be self-expressed. They have no boundaries, so they find it very difficult to develop boundaries and to draw boundaries with others. And they're either highly obsessive in their activities, or they find it impossible to complete the things that are necessary in order to create the life that they want.
I guess I'm asking you something a little bit more specific. Would you say that there's a benefit to still, let's say, go to a shrink and actually talk about what the reasons were, while also paying attention to the pancreas and the large intestine and all of that? Or do you think that that actually doesn't really play a real role in healing? Because I know the school of thought is pretty torn on that point. What is your professional opinion?
In trauma, you're unaware that it exists, so you would have no idea that you needed to actually even go talk to someone, because it's been a micro amount every day. So you're in the same arena that everyone else is. I guess I'm getting old, my energy's getting low, I just don't have the motivation.
You're fishing in water, you don't even know there's water.
You're fishing in water, you have no idea there's water. Right now, the person that's in blunt force trauma, someone is going to guide them, right? They at least are aware that they went through an event, right? Like if I'm into motocross, right, and I flip over my handles and I break my back, right, someone's throwing me in an ambulance if I'm at an event to go get some help, right? So people are all automatically enrolled, and then they're going to come by and go, hey, listen, maybe you're no longer able to do this as a job. Do you want to find someone to talk to? And if they have a wife that cares about them, or a parent or a friend, they're going to say, hey man, I think you should go talk to somebody. That's going to be available for people who go through blunt force trauma. That's just part of the system now, which is great, because guess what? When my mom went through her trauma when she was younger, none of that was available. And so to her, the only choice that was available was to take her life. That was like, well, okay, I got option A, live depressed, hopeless, suppressed, fearful, and feeling unsafe, or get the fuck out of here. And she chose, get the fuck out of here. Okay, so we're in different times now. And in these times, because mental wellness is a conversation, there's a lot of organizations that are out there to create intervention. But the key here is that I'm speaking to with the True Body Intelligence Path right now is people have to understand that they have stroma, okay, which is stress plus time that gets overaccumulated that leads to the same expression of blunt force trauma. The challenge is it's unrecognized until some event happens. Like they hurt themselves in some way, or some part in their body is in chronic discomfort, or they're losing their vision, or they're losing their hearing, or their sleep, right? Their sleep patterns are terrible, or their financial relationship, meaning their relationship with money is poor. Like until they're able to wake up and look at some part of their life. But that's coming. It's coming. I suggest people all the time, like, look, go take a look in the mirror and see where you're at now. And ask yourself, how do you want to age? Do you want to age gracefully and have had the opportunity to have the experiences you desire? Or go down to an old folks home, right? Do field trip like you used to do in grade school, and go down there as an adult and sit there. Walk down the halls, look at the people in the rooms, and ask yourself, is that what you want? Because if you continue to ignore the stroma that's running through your system, the lifetime accumulated stress load, you will be in that hospital bed, okay? And you will have tubes in you, and as you leave this world, it'll be long and exhausting and painful. That's reality. So, hey, maybe that's uncomfortable for you to hear. Maybe that's difficult to listen to. Guess what? Tough shit. You better start listening. This is your life. Okay? This is your life. You might be 25 feeling nothing right now, but I promise you, your stress and your trauma, it's coming for you. So you better be mindful of what you put in your body. You better be mindful about your sleep. You better be mindful about your communication, your ability to draw boundaries. All of these things are essential stages of development. Essential stages of development. The ability to have access to boundaries. The ability to communicate clearly. The ability to be authentically self-expressed. The ability to complete on what you start. The ability to align to your own set of principles. These are essential states of development. And that's the first tier. And there's 4 tiers. That's the first. So when somebody comes to work with me in the True Body Intelligence path, do you think I care if they ever get to the 2nd tier? No. It's like I said, we were talking about Ma Xing in another episode. Do I care if they ever feel pleasure? Hell no. What do I care about? I care that they get to neutrality. Because in neutrality, I know they can access sanity. But I know when they're invested interest, they're insane. Okay? And they're going to keep up the same old pattern, getting the same exact result, and nothing changing. And wondering why they're just slowly rolling downhill for no reason. You could be rolling uphill. Even if you're 70, you could be rolling uphill. I got people to come to me in their late 60s, early 70s, and we stopped them from rolling downhill. And now we start rolling uphill. And now they start engaging in activities again that they checked off their list. Oh, can't do that anymore. 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 Well, now I'm in my 70s. I get, what can I do? I can walk. Great. Okay, that's nice. Beautiful. Take your dog for a walk. Wonderful. But can you really get into your body, right? Really feel that pulse, that magnetic pulse, that electrical stimulus from your brain, and be charged with passion, be creating and be adding value to other people's lives. Like, the wisdom holders are our elders, and yet we tuck them away and we get no value from them. And guess what? When their energy gets too low, now they become a problem. Now I got to take care of you because you refuse to do some very basic things like increase the health of your lungs, increase the health of your large intestine, increase the health of your stomach, increase the health of your spleen. Now I got to have a codependent, dependent relationship with you, right? Like, we got to look at everything in society, and the way this whole thing is drawn up, we're failing miserably in certain areas, but we're succeeding in others, right? You know, there's things to celebrate, like this, avenues for people like you, for people like me who are passionate about growth, to be able to impart wisdom and knowledge and experience to motivate and inspire and educate so that people can make informed choices. What are you going to do without an informed choice? You're going to spin around in the same fucking circle. Again and again and again and again. And that circle keeps spinning in a circle. What happens? You just start going down, right? And every year you get closer to the grave, right? And your life expression is severely diminished. And so the first tier of wellness. I know I said the same thing 100 times, 100 different ways, because it's important. I want you to understand how important the first tier of wellness is. And when you use the tools that we've created in True Body Intelligence to remove and reduce and dismantle your lifetime accumulated stress load through your lungs, large intestine, stomach, and pancreas and spleen, your life expression is going to increase massively. I mean, massively. And you know what you're going to get? You're going to get unsolicited feedback from people. And they're going to go, Susie, what have you been doing? You look great. You feel amazing. Versus they walk past you in a grocery store and give you no attention or affection or acknowledgement that you actually exist. So you got the information. I laid it down. I've done my job. Okay? At least you know what's up. Take heartfelt action to your own benefit. If you're unable to, sit in the mirror, in your chair, and ask yourself why, and find the courage to be honest. And then investigate. Investigate intensely and figure out what you got to do in order to be able to do that. Because once you do that, you're helping me help you. When I do that, I'm helping you help me. Meaning that everything's connected. Everything's connected. Everything is connected.
So, okay, this is a lot to absorb and to act on. Where do we go from here? What's the next step?
Yeah, I mean, first, I want to sit back for a second and acknowledge you for like holding space. Because in order for me to share in this way, you've got to have somebody who has the passion and the intelligence that you have to be able to allow this to manifest. So thank you.
I'm grateful to be a part of it. So thank you.
Me too, man. Me too.
What would be the next step?
Ooh, I mean, that's a lot to feel into. I mean, my feelings are still in everything that I shared because I was very impassioned there. I was just like, oh my God, I could have kept going for hours. And I have to be mindful that the thing that we're creating has a specific kind of structure to it so that people have time to process and absorb and then consider, taking some level of action. And it's a lot to integrate. When you get information that you had no idea about, and then you get a plan, you got to figure out whether or not it sits with you. And so I think we'll give them some time and some space. And to be fair to myself, right? I want to give myself some time and some space. And part of me, I kind of like to go off the cuff. Other people like to be like extremely prepared. And I always feel like when I'm over prepared, I'm competing with what wants to be downloaded. And, I have practitioners, and so when I'm teaching them, I hand them a book, right? A workbook. And in the workbook is all the information I'm going to teach them. I hand it to them. I go, look, we're going to go over all the information in this workbook, how and when, how we go about it, and when we do it, I got no idea, right? And so I like to always invite in a co-created effort with what the universe, right, wants to bring through me and the way it wants to bring it through me. And just want to say that I'm loving what's going on. I'm enjoying sharing with you. And everything that I did share with you has enormous value if what you value is loving yourself and being the best version of yourself. And what I mean by the best is every day when you take a baby step, you're reformatting your hard drive, right? And all the things that I teach in True Body Intelligence are really to reformat your hard drive. It's different than someone giving you a software program. I'm sorry if you're a little bit older and you have difficulty with that analogy. But what I mean is all the systems within True Body Intelligence are here to help you become physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, and environmentally well. And all of these are subtractive technologies that reformat your hard drive back to neutrality as if you never actually went through these difficult experiences. And whenever you're eating something or drinking something that's harmful for your body, it's a difficult experience. Most people associate difficult experiences with things that are emotional or psychological, but you have to realize that the stuff that you put in your body, the stuff that you put in your mind, things that you watch, the way that you sleep, how you utilize your body in terms of movement, all of that is either difficult or easy. And I want to inspire you to make different choices. And I also want to be able to give you the information that's been tested again and again and again and again and again, and will produce a verifiable, repeatable result for you. Because for me, it's important that science and spirituality meet in the middle. So I know that was a little intense today, a little bit longer than the other episodes, but very necessary because of the times that we're in. We got to be able to take these concepts, we got to be able to take this education, this information, this data, and tie it all together to your benefit. Get after it. Your life is short. I know, I sound like a cheerleader. Thank you for tuning in to today's content. This will be made available in its full form of everything we put together for you at truebodyintelligence.com. And at truebodyintelligence.com, you can tune into my book, Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's unique journey to inner freedom and outer peace. And there I will teach you at a much deeper level. And this will be really, really, really good reference tool for you. Plus, the audiobook has an opportunity to allow you to start the program already by purchasing the one with the energetic integrations, and that will help you get started. All of this content will also be available on all major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and YouTube.